Good afternoon, everybody. For those who don't recognize me without my suit and tie on, my name is Jason Martin, and I am the General Counsel for the Pennsylvania Chiropractic Association. And I wanted to take this opportunity to review a few of the member benefits that you have as PCA members. So, the first member benefit is the Ask a Lawyer section of the PCA website. That allows a PCA member, if you have a legal question or concern, you could submit that question directly through that portal on the penchiro.org website. I will either answer the question via email, or if it's easier, I will invite you to have a phone call with me so we can discuss the question and I can give you some of my thoughts based on my own experiences with that particular topic. As PCA members, you have that benefit. The other benefit that you have as a PCA member is to access webinars that I have recorded that pertain to very common legal issues. One of the advantages for me of having the member questions submitted through the lawyer portal is that I can identify common areas of legal issues or topics that require a more detailed explanation. So what I've done then is taken those topics and created 30 to 60-minute webinars on those topics that you as PCA members can access through the penchiro.org website. Non-members can also access the same webinars, but as a PCA member, you get a substantial discount on the cost for the webinar. So the webinar topics that I've already done webinars for are as follows. First one is common issues for chiropractors. This includes topics such as delegation, treatment plans, and other documentation issues, some specific things regarding advertising and marketing that is set forth in the Pennsylvania Chiropractic Practice Act, some issues that commonly arise for employees, and some risk management things. So that's a nice webinar that I think can help you to identify certain potential risk areas and then try to fix them. The second one is buying and selling a chiropractic practice. I often get questions about how do I go about doing that. And even though you should always have an attorney with you in order to go through that process of buying or selling a practice, the webinar really gives you a step-by-step explanation and understanding of how that process works. The third webinar is about multidisciplinary practices. So I get a lot of questions about how to incorporate physician services within a chiropractic office. Multidisciplinary practices are often referred to as MDDC practices, and they can also incorporate physical therapy as well. So that webinar presentation really gives you a good idea from a legal standpoint as to how to do that. A fourth webinar is about Act 6. Act 6 is the latest revision to the motor vehicle financial responsibility law that occurred I want to say 20, 30 years ago. And basically what that has to do with is getting paid as a chiropractor when you're treating a motor vehicle accident patient and the insurer does a peer review and the peer review comes up negative. In other words, denying care after a certain date. And that webinar is designed to give you an idea of how that peer review process works and the procedures for appealing those decisions so that you can get paid. A fifth webinar is about HIPAA and high tech. So it's all about the the protected health information and the HIPAA privacy rules. So it's a good webinar to access in order to familiarize yourself with a lot of the current laws with respect to HIPAA and high tech and how to protect yourself with things like the business associate agreement that should be used for any third parties that may access any of your patients' protected health information. I also did a webinar jointly with David Klein of DK Coding and Compliance. That webinar was produced back in, I think, early 2024, because at that time, UPMC had put out some new policies that really impacted chiropractors. And the PCA as a whole was getting a lot of questions from chiropractors about certain policy changes from UPMC. That webinar is designed to make sure that you're aware of what those policy changes are, because some of them are very different from other payer guidelines and policies. And it also provides you with a lot of helpful tips and strategies for your billing, coding, and documentation. And a lot of those tips and strategies apply to all payers and not just UPMC. So that's a very good webinar for you, and if you hire new associates, for them to review as well. And then finally, I did a webinar on closing a chiropractic practice. A lot of the older chiropractors in Pennsylvania are retiring, or maybe they're just looking to do something else. So I've gotten a lot of questions over the years about what to do with patient records, or how to notify the patients that the practice is closing. What are other legal requirements for doing so? So that webinar is designed to go through a step-by-step process for properly closing a chiropractic practice. I'm going to be doing a new webinar in the next week or two that you can look out for. And this webinar is on a very interesting topic. And that is a topic that originated from a question from a chiropractor who is hiring an administrative assistant from a foreign country to help with billing. So as you can imagine, hiring an individual from another country provides a whole set of issues that go from whether to consider that person an independent contractor all the way through HIPAA privacy concerns. In this day and age where it's very easy to link up with individuals outside of this country to help with administrative tasks, that webinar is really going to help to identify and discuss some of the legal issues and topics that arise in that situation. So most of these webinars are about 30 to 60 minutes or so. I try to keep them brief and comprehensive. It's sometimes tough to do both at the same time, but I certainly don't want to generate a 3-hour webinar that's just too lengthy for anyone to sit down in one sitting and listen to. So I think that the webinars are very effective and really help to serve to give the PCA members and non-members a better understanding of some of these legal topics. And for anyone who watches one of the webinars and through the PCA membership, of course, if you have follow-up questions, you can simply call me and email me. And as that member benefit, we can discuss those questions. So I look forward to meeting each and every one of you at upcoming seminars and conventions. And that brings me to something I almost forgot. We are in the process of scheduling another PCA coding and compliance seminar. The Pennsylvania PCA's Coding and Compliance Seminars is a joint effort by myself, David Klein from DK Coding and Compliance, and Karen Toner from ChiroAbility. The three of us put on a full day seminar dealing with legal topics, coding, billing, documentation topics, and topics for within your practice. So that is a very comprehensive live seminar that I encourage all of you to attend. I'm Jason Martin, PCA's General Counsel, and your counsel if you need me for simple things like legal questions or legal representation. I am here to help you, just like the PCA is here to serve you. Thank you.